you at least remember consciously was happening in the dynamics of the red and the blue lights?
Well, there was clearly, on both nights that I was out there, there was clearly a white, well, the first night there was clearly a white light that when we encountered it blinded us. Also on the third night there was the blue lights, but that is the closest that I could come to when I came up on the object the first night, on what I could remember and what we dealt with. Now obviously you can see Sergeant Pennison has a completely different perspective and drawing of what he believes seen. But I will say this, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it, but from the very beginning you'll see in the lieutenant's statement and what Jim said, he clearly said it was a metallic type object that we encountered. So no matter what's been said since then, from the very beginning he felt it was some kind of object.
And when you look at this illustration that John Rackham did with your help, does it bring back any sense of feeling that you had as you and Jim were approaching light?
Well, it clearly, even when John and I were working on this, he even said it looked kind of evil, or gave you the feeling of insecurity, or it made you nervous, let's put it to you that way. You didn't like the idea that that's what you had to come upon.
And you and Jim both are still haunted, and you both describe tremendous disorientation, the feeling that there was something wrong in the air, the electrostatic feeling. And yet, once you have done these statements and you've been debriefed by Lieutenant Moran, you go back to rest, and when you wake up, you still want to go out into that forest. Can you describe that?
Yes, and as you heard Jim say too, he felt and I both felt that something, I wouldn't say for a fact was going to come back, but we both had a feeling that whatever happened to us the first time was going to happen again. And I went back up to the base, and that's how I found out about the second night.
Why do you think you were so excited by those lights?
I have no idea. I mean, there was just something that changed in us. I mean, just the effect it gave us and what it wanted us to do. Because I mean, come on, let's talk about this. How many of you would like to meet up with that? I mean, I can't tell you honestly that if I knew something was about to happen and that was what it was going to be, like Doc said, I really wouldn't want to be out there and dealing with that.
Now, can you go to, when you go to see the Desk Sergeant O'Brien, because you are anxious, you feel an excitement that something has returned and you want to get back into that forest, talk about that conversation with O'Brien.
Well, the interesting thing that stuck out to me was the fact that he described that the lieutenant got very shaken up by it and was upset by it. And then what you heard Lori say was that when she heard her and Sergeant Ball out in the woods, again, that she seemed quite excited and upset. So again, to me, it just tells you whatever we encountered had an effect on you and could cause you to have feelings that, you know, that weren't normal and that you didn't feel right.
And it's a fact that Lieutenant Tamplin, the D Flight Shift Commander, lost her gun?
Well, that's something that, I'm sorry? Oh, okay, I understand. Yes, the fact that Colonel Howe brought up the issue that she may have misplaced her weapon that night, yes.
But she was definitely frightened, and to hear Tremontazzi and to hear Lori Bowen talk about hearing their D Flight Shift Commander so panicked on the radio, and that she apparently was relieved of duty and may have been relieved of duty as D Flight Shift Commander for forever. That's what we're trying to find out.
Right, that's what we're trying to find out right now.
Now, if RAF Bentwaters had nuclear weapons in its weapons storage area, John, where do you think it's likely that the Wing Command audio tapes, because they were taping everything 24/7 every week around the clock, where would they have gone?
Well, here's the thing. When I first saw the initial report and I heard Captain Verano say what he said, there at no point did and I was out there on 2 different nights, I was out in the Light-All area, did I see any cameras taking movies or taking pictures of it. And this is 1980, it's not today where you carry around a little camera. So I immediately felt that they were the audio tapes, and Colonel Hall had told me that had been done. So obviously after all this, I'm sure they went over to Ramstein, because I mean that's what Captain Verano said, and I've always stated that if those tapes were ever released, you'd get a very clear understanding what took place over those 3 nights.
Do you think it's likely that they are over in the National Security Agency in Fort Meade?
Well, obviously, if they did an investigation and that's the agency that handles it, that's sure where they are right now.
Now, can you go to what happened in your own life after December 28th? Something really extraordinary happened with you and Vestinza running next to each other, but the very next thing is they assign you to the East Gate.
Yes. When I returned from duty after working Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they had put me on the East Gate. And when I went to work that day, and then I got told where I was going to be posted, which was not a normal posting after 6 o'clock in the evening, I was told I was being put on the East Gate because there was activity going on in the woods, and that if I observed anything, to not call it in on the radio, but to go ahead and call it in on the phone. And the reason why they put me there is because I had already been involved in the incident prior. And when I got out there, there were clearly helicopters out in the area over the forest. There was trucks going up and down the road and then coming out of the forest area. And on the second night, right around darkness, after you'd seen the helicopters out there, I observed a helicopter come up from the forest area out over into the flightline area, carrying what appeared to be some kind of small crate or something, and it was taken over on and put down on the flightline at Woodbridge.
And was that the night that the C-5 came in near WSA?
No, the C-5 actually arrived on Sunday night prior, and then Monday they started out in the woods.
And from your impression, it was that helicopters were out there. There may have been something lifted from the forest, and a C-5 does come in there close to the WSA.
Well, yeah, a C-5 landed at Bentwaters on Sunday night and was parked over by the weapons storage area, yes.
And when you go to Britain's Lord Hill Norton, he was a 5-star admiral, he was chief of the UK Defence Staff, he was chairman of the NATO Military Command, and he said, in his own words about RAF Bentwaters, quote, "It had to be of defense significance," close quote. Why do you think it was able, with him being in the position that he was, and with people who apparently were trying to investigate, how do you think it was so completely and totally covered up for so long?
Well, the thing about the whole incident in itself, and I've discussed this before, is that I don't know how they kept it quiet from the beginning, but somehow for several years they were able to keep this from coming out. The fact that Lord Hill Norton himself, who held one of the highest ranks in the British military, would be equivalent to the Joint Chief of Staffs in the United States, didn't believe that it was not of defense significance. The fact that I was going to open with, I was going to say, what do you think, a lighthouse, planets? I mean, we had something happen to us. And I'm here to tell you, I don't know what it was. And when you go into disclosure, to me, if you're on duty, you've raised your right hand for your country, you've taken an oath, you're out there defending your country, and you have something happen to you, and you've heard from Sergeant Bobo and some other people, there's been a few that said they were brought in and interrogated, which why would we be interrogated if we were doing our job?
And why would he be completely ignored?
And why would the rest of us be ignored? It's clear to me that we weren't taken care of. Okay, and we can go back and forth on who saw what happened, why they saw it this way, why I saw it that way, but you can't deny the fact that over a 3-night period, outside the largest TAC fighter wing in the United States Air Force, they had a weapons storage area, an extraordinary event went on, and to this day, other than one statement that I believe was done at the very beginning when CNN Special Assignments Chuck DeCaro looked into the incident, the only comment by the United States Air Force was, we stand by Colonel Halt's memo, but they will not make a single official comment on the record about the incident, and if you notice, most of the time over the years, the military doesn't hesitate to tell you, like the Phoenix Lights, oh, it was just flares.
And in this case, it was a lighthouse in the wrong direction.
Right. Well, that was what the skeptics say.
Yeah.
We're out there, and according to Colonel Halt, as he's standing there and the beam of light's coming down to his feet and he's going, this is unreal, he was completely fooled by the lighthouse.
Yes. Now, former UK Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher told journalist Georgina Bruni, quote, "Yes, Bentwaters happened, but we can't tell the people," close quote, the title of her book. What do you think just speculating that Margaret Thatcher and the various need-to-know agencies in the United Kingdom and the United States know about what happened in the Rendlesham Forest that the rest of the world cannot know?
I mean, you have to look at the time frame, what was going on as far as the Cold War, the fact that something, not just once but several times, has happened over the base. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, if they really know what happened to us. This is one of the few times to me that just, I don't spend a lot of time looking at other incidents, that no one has been willing to come on the record and say really what happened or didn't happen to us. And they refuse to, discredit us, not the Air Force itself, Department of the Air Force. So maybe they don't even know what happened to us. Maybe it's a mystery to them.
Well, if it is all right with Stephen Bassett, I'll go about another 7 minutes on an event that took place just about 11 days after you. And John, I want to thank you so much for being here and speaking what you do know. And if it is all right with everybody, I'm just going to do a kind of epilogue close because I think this is important. It did not end on December 28th, but nobody knew about what happened on January 9th until one of the airmen named Steve LePlume contacted me about 3 years ago. We did one interview, and then he heard about Colonel Halt's statement in June that it was extraterrestrial in origin, and he contacted me again. And for those of you who have been following my work on Coast to Coast, I have done a lot of reports with some of these interviews, and I'm going to continue doing them. And what I want to share with you now is what did happen out in the same Eastgate area after John and the others' experience. We're back in the Rendlesham Forest. It is the East Gate. Here is Steve LePlume. He was born in Leominster, Massachusetts on July 14th, 1962. Right after high school, he enlisted in the U.S. Air Force on July 10th, 1980. He first went to Lackland Air Force Base in Texas for technical training in its police academy, and then he was shipped out to RAF Bentwaters in mid-September 1980. He was still waiting for his secret clearance to come through so he could officially join the base security. In the meantime, he was doing shift reliefs and remembers being in the day room soon after Christmas when airmen talked about other men being chased by UFOs out in the Rendlesham Forest. And then, on the night of January 9 to 10, 1981, U.S. Air Force Airman First Class Steve LePlume was on patrol at the RAF Woodbridge East Gate with Senior Airman Wendell Palmer. First, LePlume and Palmer watched a light moving up and down in the sky. There have been several cases like this over the last 50, 60 years, and people compare it to a sewing needle. It literally moves this fast. It's covering a great deal, many degrees in the sky, and that's what you're seeing in that drawing that he has done. The men called security control, and to their shock, Colonel Gordon, and this is now what Steve LePlume says. There's another version of this from Colonel Halt, but I'm giving you Steve LePlume's. Colonel Gordon Williams, Base Commander Ted Conrad, and Deputy Base Commander Charles Halt all showed up with cameras to photograph the UFO that had returned to Rendlesham Forest, and that Commander Ted Conrad even had his wife and children with him. This is the part that Colonel Halt says happened before, but I'm giving you Steve LePlume. He said they all came back about 45 minutes later and gave no indication that they saw anything. They posted me on that East Gate all night long and told me to report if I saw anything else, and then the higher command, they all left. At the East Gate, Airman LePlume and Palmer saw a blue, green, red, and yellow light come straight for them over Rendlesham Forest that at its closest was a huge cigar-shaped aerial craft, perhaps longer than a football field and 1,000 feet above their heads. And here now is Steve LaPlume.
This craft was maybe about 1,000 feet